section on Canadian culture. We're going to first chat to Tom Babin, who is Director of Marketing at Indigenous Tourism Alberta, and he's going to be talking about the province's Indigenous experiences and how to market and sell them. He's got lots of great tips for you, so I hope you're looking forward to that. We will then take a virtual fam trip of Ontario that showcases the destination's best cultural attractions and experiences. And then finally, we're moving on to the agent Q&A. And involved in that will be Jenny Bridgman, Business Development Director for the UK at Travel Alberta, and Alistair Drake-Smith, who is Account Manager at Destination Ontario. So if you do have any questions about selling travel to Alberta and Ontario, please do type them in the chat box throughout. And if you're watching this live, don't forget to answer the questions in the polls tab for a chance to win a place on a fam trip to Canada next year. But now it's time to welcome Tom. So welcome, Tom. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about Indigenous experiences in Alberta in this section of the session, as I know you're keen to celebrate this sector of Canada's tourism industry. But some agents might not be aware of what an Indigenous experience actually entails. Can you just give us a quick definition, in your opinion, of an Indigenous experience?
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of people have an image of what Indigenous tourism is, but it's that, but so many other things too. It's really diverse these days. And what we like to say is, an Indigenous experience is any experience offered by an Indigenous person. So there's a huge variety and diversity of those experiences that we can probably get into a bit later as well.
Okay, great. And can you tell us about the Indigenous experiences that visitors can have in Alberta? I mean, are there lots of options to choose from? Can you talk us through some of those options and why they might appeal to travellers from the UK and Ireland?
Yeah, we have experiences all over Alberta, lots of different kinds of experiences. I sort of think of them in different categories. For example, we have a number of operators who offer cultural experiences. So, for example, there's a new facility called Métis Crossing that's near Edmonton that celebrates and educates people about Métis culture, which is one of the three First Nations or one of the three Indigenous groups of Canada. Métis people traditionally came together to those who have mixed lineage, Indigenous and European, and over the years they've developed their own culture and language. And so Métis Crossing is a multi-million-dollar facility that has a cultural center, a boutique hotel, brand new sky watching domes where you can look at the Northern Lights, a wildlife park where you can get up close with buffalo, bison, and really celebrate Indigenous culture and learning and tradition, music and food. So that's a great one. Another in the cultural realm was Warrior Women, located in Jasper National Park. And Warrior Women is Matricia. She's a drummer and a singer, and she does fireside chats where she shares her own personal story and stories of her Cree culture and past. And she's just really a great sharer of her culture. So that's really great. We also have land-based, I like to call land-based experiences, where it's an Indigenous person taking travelers out onto the land to teach about history and culture, learn about the traditional use of plants and wildlife, and like really get into the deeper history of this place than most people get. So companies like Mohican Trails and Painted Warriors are among those. And then another category I like to talk about too is what we call Indigenous owned experiences. So these might be more traditional experiences that any traveler would get, but they're Indigenous owned. So you know that your money is going to support Indigenous people and Indigenous communities. And examples of this are like the Grey Eagle Resort Casino in Calgary or the River Cree Resort in Edmonton. So, beautiful hotels, but owned by Indigenous nations. So you know your money is going to a good place.
That's fantastic. It's really important when traveling these days, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really makes a difference. I mean, our members are in this because they want to share culture, and this really benefits their communities. It helps preserve culture, preserve language. It's really important. It's to the nations and to the country.
Okay, great. And some of those experiences that you mentioned, what is the best way for agents in the UK and Ireland to book those? Are they being sold through a UK tour operator currently?
Yeah, there's a number. I can name a few: Prestige Travel, Premier Holidays, First Class Holidays, Oddly Travel, Canadian Affair. So they're available through them now. We've got more in the works. We're a fairly young organization. We're only about 3 or 4 years old. And so this is the first time all Indigenous members in Alberta are coming together. And so we've got lots of work to do. And there'll be more coming down in the coming years. So we're pretty excited. It's a great time for Indigenous tourism right now.
Fantastic. And these experiences that you're talking about here, are they suitable for all types of traveller? I mean, I assume they probably are, but are there any that cater particularly well to different demographics and markets? So any that would work particularly well for families or groups, or any particularly premium luxury experiences that might be better for travellers with a higher budget?
Yeah, because there's such diversity, I think it's good for all travelers. I think the one thing that's important beyond sort of demographics or families is that people are willing to learn. I think the best experiences are those travelers who come with an open mind and an open heart and really want to learn the true history of this place. So that's really great. I think families are always a good one. I had a family tell me that a day spent with one of our members was the best day they've ever had as a family recently, because they learned so much and had like a real connection to the land. So that's really important too. And I think that what a lot of our members like to do is really connect. Like Indigenous culture in Canada is built on relationships. It's built on like a real human connection. And so groups who want to experience that, I think, is really who get the most out of Indigenous experiences.
Okay, great. And these experiences, your recommendations for them, do they change throughout the seasons? Like, are there some that you really recommend in the summer or the winter, or some, or others in the autumn and the shoulder seasons that might be better suited to visitors traveling at that time?
Yeah, I think some of them that I've mentioned, like Métis Crossing and Mohican Trails and Warrior Woman, and another one called Painted Warriors, which is near Banff National Park. They tend to change with the season, and part of being an Indigenous tourism provider is having that connection to land, and so sort of the natural rhythms of the seasons are part of what you'll learn about too. Mohican Trails, for example, just launched a new winter experience that really she often talks about the getting away from the commodification of winter and really getting back to like what the feeling means, and that traditionally how Indigenous people dealt with Canadian winters and how it sort of fits into the flow of life through the entire year. So I think those experiences are different depending what season you come in, but I think that's part of the cool part of it, is that you really get a connection to the season no matter what time you come.
Yeah, of course. Okay. And I did want to ask about any new cultural or Indigenous experiences that you've got in the pipeline. But I know you mentioned that the Métis Crossing, is that the main new product that you're keen to talk about, or is there other stuff going on behind the scenes about to launch?
Yeah, we've got lots in the works, and we're hopeful in the next couple of years we'll have a lot more to talk about. Métis Crossing is probably the signature experience in Alberta right now. We've got another one called Blackfoot Crossing, which is this really cool cultural facility that celebrates Blackfoot culture, and it's a beautiful museum and cultural center on a historically significant piece of land. It's right on the location where Treaty 7 was signed in 1877 between the British Crown and the Blackfoot people and the Stoney Nakoda people and the Tsuut'ina people. And so that's in the facilities up and running. They're adding cool new experiences like teepee camps in the river, new programming, and they recently repatriated the regalia that's been of Chief Crowfoot, a historically important chief. It was been in a British museum for the last 125 years, and now it's back from the nation. And so that was a big moment for the nation, and they put it on display. And so that's in the works. I'm really excited. We're really excited about that one. We got a couple of other experiences in the works in the mountain parks of Banff National Park and Jasper National Park. One that's up and running now is an Indigenous ice walk, and so we're pretty excited about this. It's on the Columbia Ice Field, which is an amazing experience just visiting there. But with an Indigenous operator, you can go onto the ice, safely with the cleats on your boots, and you can actually walk on this glacier, and you can hear the story of climate change and glaciology, how the glacier is melting because of climate change, which is a really fascinating story. But also because he's Indigenous, he has this whole cultural angle that he can talk about the importance of the water that flows from the glacier, the ice, the seasonality of it, the connection to land. So it's really a deeper experience. I find like a lot of travelers who come through Canada, just having an Indigenous experience on your itinerary just makes for a deeper experience and gives you more connection to that place. So we've got lots in the works, and we'll have more coming out in the next couple of years.
Great. I look forward to seeing it all come together. Sounds really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we touched on this a bit earlier about how it's really important that the money that tourists spend in Canada, in Alberta specifically, goes back into these Indigenous communities. Do you have any tips or advice for agents choosing these Indigenous experiences, and and for them knowing that their money is definitely going to go back into those communities, and therefore those are the experiences they should be selling. Have you got any tips for identifying the kind of the good from the bad, if you will?
Yeah, one of the reasons we exist is to help navigate this question, because we want authentic Indigenous experiences. We know travelers want that. And so we're trying to make this easy. So a couple of things that you can do is, like, if they're a member of Indigenous Tourism Alberta, you can be assured that it's an authentic Indigenous experience, and you can visit our website at indigenous-tourismalberta.ca and see the list of all of our members. To be a member of Indigenous Tourism Alberta, you need to be at least 51% owned by Indigenous people, and so that assures authenticity. I'd also point to ITAC, the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, our Destination Indigenous. They have a new program called the Original program, and that's exactly this intention. To be a certified original accredited member, you need to prove that you're an authentic Indigenous experience and that you're export ready. And so there's a little stamp, little logo that goes on the websites of those who have gone through the accreditation program. So taking a look for that original mark is really important, and it's a way that you can not have to worry about whether it's an authentic experience or not. You know that the money's going to Indigenous families, Indigenous communities, and that it's an authentic Indigenous experience.
Fantastic. That's a great tip. Thank you. And do you have any tips for agents to pass on to their customers who are visiting Alberta and going on these Indigenous experiences? I'm talking about tips for making sure they respect their traditions. It might be tips for respecting the language, or certain behaviors that they should be practicing.
Yeah, that's a great question. We get lots of questions about that. People don't want to say the wrong thing. And I would just say, as long as you're coming to the experience with an open mind and an open heart, and you're open and ready to listen, I think you will be fine. Indigenous people in the tourism industry, they want to share. That's why they're in business. So they want to have these questions asked. So leave your preconceptions at home, come in with an open mind and listen. I would say ask lots of questions, especially around things like taking photographs. If your experience includes any kind of ceremonial aspects, which is pretty common in Indigenous experiences, you probably want to ask if it's appropriate to take photos before that. And some people will say yes, and some will say no, which is why it's important to ask. And I would also say, just be thoughtful about the questions you're asking too. I mean, Indigenous people in Canada have not had a great history. Part of the experiences is sharing those difficult stories. But I'd also say there can be a lot of trauma associated with that. Indigenous people in Canada are still dealing with that trauma. And so you don't want to come into this experience and re-traumatize somebody. So use respect and ask questions sensitively. I think most people in the industry know how to navigate these things, but also keep in mind that you don't want to send somebody for a loop by asking a really difficult question in the same way you would, anybody who's experienced some trauma in their lives.
Cool. That's really interesting. Thank you. And what about tips for the agents when they're promoting these experiences, when they're marketing them? Are there any do's and don'ts when it comes to promotions?
The same kind of thing. I think it's ask a lot of questions. Yeah. Come to us or Indigenous Tourism Alberta or ITAC or Destination Indigenous if you have any real concerns. Really, one of the things we talk about a lot is letting Indigenous people share their own stories. There's, not always a great history of non-Indigenous people coming in and then resharing those stories. What we try to do is amplify the stories of Indigenous people through our membership. And so I think if you keep that in mind, our job is to, if you want it to be authentic and you want it to be real and you want it to be meaningful, then our job, I think, is to amplify the stories of the Indigenous people, not retell them in different ways. So it's a subtle distinction, I think, but if you keep that in mind, I think it helps. And really, I think that what I like about it as a tourism experience is Indigenous experiences are a differentiator, because you're not going to get Alberta's Indigenous cultures anywhere else. So it really can make any itinerary a bit more deep. It has have more connections to the land, and we just find so many people it can really touch them. There's a real worldview that comes with Indigenous experiences too that you can learn a bit about. So it can give you a whole different perspective on the way we live our lives. I think just being open to all that is an important piece as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's really interesting to hear. Thanks, Tom, for all your insight. But that's just about all we've got time for, unfortunately.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No, thank you. So sadly, Tom wasn't able to stick around for the agent Q&A, but rest assured his colleague Jenny will be joining that to answer any questions you have about selling travel to Alberta. But first, we're going to take a look at Ontario, which is another Canadian province with plenty of cultural flair to tempt your clients. Destination Ontario has shared a fantastic virtual FAM that gives you insight into the cultural experiences that it has to offer. So let's take a look at that now before we move on to the agent Q&A. Enjoy.
Thank you for joining us on this virtual FAM of Ontario, where we'll walk you through some of the best experiences this province has to offer. And what better place to start our journey than in vibrant Toronto, Canada's biggest city and Ontario's provincial capital. One of Toronto's most iconic and thrilling attractions is the CN Tower, the place to go for the best views of the city. Skypod is the highest observation platform in the Western Hemisphere, and you can even feel the tower move. There's an abundance of art and culture attractions in the city, from fascinating museums to unique art galleries to educational science centres. The majestic Casa Loma remains one of the only true castles in North America. For unforgettable family-friendly experiences, head to Toronto Zoo, the largest zoo in Canada, or Ripley's Aquarium of Canada, to immerse yourself in a marine world of 20,000 aquatic animals. Another iconic attraction is the Hockey Hall of Fame, a museum dedicated to the history of ice hockey. Toronto has endless unique neighbourhoods filled with amazing dining and activities. There's Bohemian Kensington Market, filled with boutique independent shops and stalls, and charming St. Lawrence, where you'll find St. Lawrence Market South, a neighbourhood landmark and home to over 200 food vendors, frequented by tourists and locals alike. The historic Distillery District, a pedestrian zone with its cobblestone streets and charm. The former whiskey distillery is filled with shops, restaurants and bars. Toronto has emerged as a major shopping destination in recent years, and you'll find fantastic stores around every corner. The Art Market Bloor Yorkville area is known for its stylish boutique stores and haute couture labels. But each of Toronto's many neighbourhoods offer a variety of styles that cater to every type of budget. Toronto Eaton Centre welcomes millions of visitors from all around the world and offers a world-class shopping experience, and every year shoppers marvel at its iconic Christmas tree, said to be the tallest in America. And every holiday season, the best place to get in the festive spirit is at the Distillery Winter Village, recognised as one of the world's best Christmas markets. And of course, you can't miss ice skating in Nathan Phillips Square. For the perfect picturesque escape from the bustle of the city centre, head to Humber Bay Park or spend the day relaxing on the tranquil Water's Edge Promenade. In the summer months, take the ferry over to the Toronto Islands. With beaches, amusement parks, outdoor activities, shops and food to try, the islands have something to offer everyone. There is a huge sports scene in Toronto. No trip to the city is complete without experiencing a game. We're home to the Raptors, Toronto FC, Blue Jays, and of course Canada's team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Food, music, art or culture, whatever your passion, there's an event or festival in Toronto. From beloved annual fairs to the iconic Pride Festival, come and create new traditions and celebrate old ones in style. About an hour and a half from Toronto is the incredible Niagara Falls, one of the natural wonders of the world and also known as honeymoon capital of the world. The attraction is the falls itself, and there are so many ways to experience them. Journey Behind the Falls is a year-round attraction and truly unique experience where you'll encounter the epic spectacle of the cascades crashing down to the basin below. Other ways to view the falls include helicopter tours, boat expeditions, and even a zipline experience. Or step inside Niagara's Fury, a multi-sensory simulation for all the family. There are many other amazing adventures to be had, such as at Niagara Park's power station, uncover fascinating stories and explore the underground tunnels leading to an observation deck. And at night, the power station comes to life with a breathtaking interactive experience you'll never forget, an immersive sight and sound show. Next, hop on the historic Whirlpool Aerocar for an unforgettable ride over the lively waters of the Niagara River. or the Niagara Parks Incline Railway, providing riders a unique vantage point of the Horseshoe Falls as they ride and descend along the track. For another tranquil experience, stroll down the Whitewater Walk and stop at the many platforms offering incredible views. Every season reveals new gorgeous blooms at the botanical gardens, particularly along the peaceful walking trails or picturesque rose gardens, and discover a tropical garden oasis at the Butterfly Conservatory. Next, we come to Ottawa, Canada's historic capital, offering an interesting mix of English and French culture. Each year, the city hosts the famous Canadian Tulip Festival in May, which is the perfect place to see them in full bloom. One of the best ways to immerse yourself in Ottawa's history and culture is through a hop-on, hop-off bus tour or a relaxing bike tour of the city. And to best explore the vibrant culinary scene throughout the city, book yourself onto a foodie walking tour. Each winter, Ottawa's Rideau Canal turns into the world's largest ice skating rink. Touring Upper Canada Village, just south of Ottawa, is a magical cultural experience, transporting you back in time to the 1860s. And there's so much more to see. The Thousand Islands makes for a beautiful day trip. Hop onto one of the boat cruises offered at various ports and explore the island. It's no secret that Ontario is truly magical during fall. The best way to enjoy the explosion of vibrant colours is by leaving the cities and delving deep into nature. There's unparalleled adventure to be experienced all across the province, including scenic train tours, wildlife spotting, treetop walks, and breathtaking hiking trails. And you'll find a plethora of water-based fun, particularly in Northern Ontario. Everything from kayaking, canoeing, and paddleboarding to fishing, boating, and swimming. In snowy months, try cross-country skiing, dog sledding, or snowmobiling for a proper outdoors Ontario winter experience. Manitoulin Island is a special place that offers authentic cultural experiences, including an array of Indigenous tourism experience. This includes dance, song, cooking, arts and crafts, and wilderness adventures. The guides will take you on an educational journey through time, teaching visitors about the significant role Indigenous peoples play in shaping the island's culture and heritage. There's an ever-expanding world of unforgettable and unexpected things to do and see in Ontario. Home to diverse people, landscapes, and experiences, Ontario is such a vibrant place to explore. It's the perfect place to embrace a new adventure.
So a big thank you to Destination Ontario for sharing that virtual fam. Now let's head over to meet Alistair and Jenny in the Q&A and answer any questions that you might have about sending holidays to Alberta and Ontario. So if you have any questions, please do type them in the chat box now. Hi Alistair. Hi Jenny.
Hi.
Hey. Hi, great to have you on screen. Let's see if we have any questions come in for you from agents. But just to start things off, I think we've had one already from Sarah, who was asking about the Metis Crossing, Jenny. She's asking how far is it from Edmonton?
So it's about an hour and a half from Edmonton, so not too far at all. Really easy to combine the two.
Is that by car?
At the moment, yeah, that's by car. Yeah. I do understand that in the future there will be transfers as well, built into some of the packages that they offer.
Fantastic. And she's also asked about Blackfoot Crossing, how far that is from Calgary?
Pretty much the same, maybe 10 minutes less, so maybe an hour and 20, an hour and a half, slightly to the east of Calgary, that is.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. And Alistair, we've talked about Indigenous experiences in Ontario, but what are the other cultural experiences that the agents could have?
So it really wide ranging. So we have in Ottawa specifically, we have 7 of the 13 national museums and galleries in the country. including the Indigenous History Museum, the Canadian War Museum, a few more. We've got the Art Gallery of Ontario and the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. Further north in Sudbury, we have the Art Science North IMAX Centre, and lots more, the Aga Khan in Toronto as well. There really is lots of great, unique and different museums and galleries dotted around Ontario. And Manitoulin Island in particular with Wikwemikong is great for Indigenous experiences.
Perfect. Okay. We've got a question from Lindy here as well. When is the ice skating rink in Ontario available? When does it open?
So it's a little bit weather dependent, but it's open now currently. It generally opens late November and will run through January.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I assume Lindy means the famous one in Nathan Phillips Square in Toronto with the Toronto stand. But yeah.
Fantastic. Great winter wonderland there at the moment, I'd imagine.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, great. So Jenny, that question to you as well. We've talked about Indigenous experiences. What are the other cultural experiences that clients could have when they visit Alberta?
Well, I think probably one of the really well-known ones is taking on the cowboy culture and the Western culture of Alberta, and that is every year in July is Calgary Stampede. So that's a big Western extravaganza, and the whole city comes to life. Everyone dons their Western wear, and Calgary Stampede isn't just about the rodeo. Yes, there's a daily rodeo, and they do compete for huge prize fund, but it is like a fairground. There's all sorts of food stalls, local arts and crafts. There's an evening extravaganza show, which is music, a drone show, fireworks, you name it, it's there. And then it does also have an Indigenous village as well. So that is really embracing the Western culture as opposed to the Indigenous culture of Alberta.
Okay, great, interesting. And Alistair, back to you. Do you have any new hotels, attractions, or infrastructure that's coming to Ontario in the coming months, or might have just come to market?
Yeah, so there's always, in Toronto specifically, there's always lots of new hotels and stuff opening. We had one hotel, we have a Nobu hotel opening, which is the first hotel from a Nobu brand, and it will open along with the restaurant. In terms of new attractions, we have Little Canada, and much more. A great new attraction in Niagara Falls is the Niagara Parks power station tunnel. So it's essentially a new unique way to experience and view the falls. So you go to an old power station. It takes you through the history of the power station, why it was taken out of commission, what it did while it was in commission, and you descend a glass elevator down to river level, the Niagara River. And you go along this tunnel, which is where the water used to exit from the power station, and it gives you a really nice panoramic view of not just the Horseshoe Falls, but also the Bridal and American Falls as well.
Fantastic. And Jenny, what about Alberta? I know we've talked about the new Indigenous cultural experiences, but what about anything else that you might have that's new that's coming in terms of hotels or attractions or infrastructure?
Couple of new hotels opening in Banff imminently is the Canoe Hotel. That's going to be kind of like around a 4-star hotel, really accessible within Banff. We also have a couple of new hotels in Calgary, for example, the Dorian, which is right in downtown with a great rooftop bar. Going back to talking about Calgary Stampede, we have what's known as the Sand Centre, which will be opening in spring next year, and that will tell the story of Calgary Stampede year round. So even if clients aren't visiting over the time of Stampede in early July, they'll actually be able to learn all about what is one of the most world-famous outdoor rodeo or Western events as well. And we also have a great, relatively new experience operator in the Rockies called Rad Ventures, who do all sorts of different theme guided tours, whether it's sightseeing tours or wildlife tours or tours to Moraine Lake for sunrise and things like that as well. Really great small group tours there.
Okay, cool. Sounds great. I did just also want to ask about the cultural experiences that might be most suitable for families, because obviously not all cultural experiences will be suitable for people traveling with really young kids, toddlers or babies. Have you got any suggestions for young families? Alistair, should I come to you first?
Sure, definitely. So with young families in particular, I'd definitely recommend staying in the main cities themselves, and of course Niagara Falls. So Niagara Falls itself has tons of family-friendly ways to experience a falls. So you've got the voyage to the falls boat tour, which is family-friendly. There's the Table Rock's a great alternative as well. So that's a restaurant sitting on top of a falls. It's a way to keep nice and dry year round and enjoy the sights a little bit. In Toronto, the Royal Ontario Museum is genuinely fascinating, and I think it's great for all families. We've got the Hockey Hall of Fame as well, so for young kids, that's always a great one. And the Ripley's Aquarium of Canada in Toronto is really special. I think it's over 20,000 aquatic animals, and it's very much catered to young families and young kids. And then of course Science North in Sudbury it's all about learning about the science, the history, and the ecological aspects of the region. And it's again very much catered to young families.
Fantastic, thanks. And Jenny, what about in Alberta?
I think the first thing that came to mind for families in Alberta is really the dinosaur heritage. So we have Dinosaur Provincial Park over in the east of the province, where they've found like no end of dinosaur remains. I mean, some of the largest finds anywhere in the world, and they do some really fantastic tours that take you kind of like behind the scenes. So you can actually get the kids involved in looking for fossils, and it's really easy to see them as well, because basically the paleontologists are only interested in the big finds, but there's lots of little tiny fossils just dotted around. But then also you can see where there's been some of those really big finds, because they leave like a marker in the rocks and stuff. And then also in the distance you can see active digs and things like that, and it's a really nice visitor centre that goes with it. And then nearby in Drumheller there's a museum completely dedicated to paleontology as well. So I think that's really fascinating for kids. But also some of the Indigenous experiences, I think as Tom mentioned, are still great for kids. There's some of the medicine walks that they can do and learn about the plants that Indigenous people use for cures and things like that. And then also some of the experiences are like fireside chats, so around the fire, toasting marshmallows and things like that as well. So there is a real great variety of things for kids to do as well.
Great, okay. And there'll be agents in the audience today who have luxury clients with really high-end budgets. So I just wondered if there are any experiences that you would recommend for those who are really looking to, push the boat out in terms of their cultural experience. Alistair, should I come to you first?
Definitely. So I would a really fun and I guess a little adrenaline pumping way to see a couple of places in Ontario is with the helicopter tours. So you can take a helicopter tour of Niagara Falls with Niagara City helicopters, and also of Kingston and the Thousand Islands region. So Thousand Islands are a chain of 1,800 islands, I think, in the St. Lawrence River, where it's connecting onto Lake Ontario, and a helicopter tour of that is great and slightly more expensive than a boat cruise, but if you've got the money, it really is special.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got a question that snuck in here from Sarah just in time. Can you recommend any ranch stays and the best suppliers to package those up? Jenny, I think that would probably be more a question for you.
I think the first ranch that comes to mind is Thanksgiving Ranch, which is just an hour or so south of Calgary, almost in between Waterton National Park, which is on the border with Montana, and then the Rockies, as most people know them as the bucket list style Rockies, like Banff and Lake Louise. So sits around there. And I think the question also has who could they book through? I would need to double check, but I would say the likes of Canadian Fair First Class Holidays, they should all be able to book them for you as well.
Brilliant. Thank you both very much. It is 11:05, so which means it is time to move on to our next session of the day. So thank you, Jenny and Anna, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Great. And we'll move everyone through into Western Wilderness now.
Yeah. Have a lovely day.
Thanks.